Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. The Monroe County Commissioners met on May 8th and discussed the approval of an agreement with EGIS BLN Incorporated for countywide bridge inspections. Highway Director Lisa Ridge presented the agreement.
We are required to do a 4-year cycle on bridges in Monroe County. The agreement is to be for the fiscal year 2026 to 2029. We sent out RFPs as required through the NDOT federal aid program. The RFPs were scored by 3 individuals in the department, and then NDOT went over our paperwork to make sure that we were certified with our selection, and they agreed. So it would be EGIS, formerly Beam Longest and Neff, and the bridge inspections are covered 80% with federal funds and 20% local funds, and it is a reimbursable grant program.
Commissioner Jody Madeira commented on the grant aspect of the agreement.
I'm just very, again, grateful that this is we only have to pay 20% of local funds, and again, very important purpose. Thank you.
Commissioner Julie Thomas said that she was thankful for the staff who put in the work to select a good contractor for the job. The commissioners approved the agreement unanimously. At their meeting on May 7th, the Monroe County Board of Zoning Appeals discussed a building area variance request for a property with structures and gravel in a special flood hazard area. Planning Department Director Jackie Jellin presented background information to the board.
So we have a timeline of events, and I'm going to just go over that. I discussed, the pond expansion where they had state permits, also the driveway that had state permits. When staff went out there to close out those permits, that's when we discovered 2 accessory structures that had been added to the property. One of those is located in the special flood hazard area. So it took them about 6 months to file for that permit, to get it started. Took about another year for them to file for the flood permit. That was never fully, they had left out a lot of information. And then also the variance application was applied for in 2024, but we did not accept it until February this year because of missing information. And then something to note is that on February 28th, 2025, the property transferred ownership, and it went from the Neese family to the Erie family. So the new owner was aware of the compliance issues, and he has been working with staff to try to remedy a lot of those. So back to my timeline, during staff visit, we discovered the gravel on the property, and using those aerials, we kind of know it was sometime in 2024, couldn't decide exactly when, but we were pretty sure that both the stormwater ordinance and the county development ordinance, or I should say the old Monroe County zoning ordinance, were both in effect, and therefore we're kind of trying to get compliance with both of those at this time. The current owner has removed gravel from the approximate floodway, so they have been working for compliance there. And then just yesterday, staff did another inspection to confirm that all the material was located outside of the floodplain that had been removed from the floodway. And then also did some other analysis to kind of confirm that compensatory storage was being met on the site. And I'll get into that.
Jellin shared a letter from the current resident of the property.
I do have a letter from the current property owner, Sam Yeary, and he is here in the audience this evening. And based upon some back and forth discussions that I had with him via email, and then also here it's put in the letter, that they are wanting to keep the accessory structure, and they're also wanting to keep the gravel parking lots areas that are not in the floodway. So all the remaining area of that gravel they're requesting. And then also included in the packet was the 2021 flood event, just kind of showing that the water does get pretty high up over in there, and that was not even documented as a 1% chance flood, so it could be more than that. So we're trying to take precautions and protect people both upstream and downstream by making sure things are compliant.
Jellin explained why the gravel on the property needed to be removed.
So I met with a stormwater program manager on Monday. We reviewed her ordinance. I already knew mine. And then we came up with a plan to figure out if it met it or not. So we knew some basics of what the parking area was, which is 21,000 square feet. We were told that the gravel is about 6 to 7 inches of gravel, which equates to about 457 cubic yards or 24 triaxles, if you can visualize that. So there's 24 triaxles that has been put into the floodplain. And what we would like to see basically is 24 triaxles worth of stuff taken out of the floodplain so that you're not causing a rise in the flood levels, which can damage other people that have structures in the floodplain. And I really try to review that carefully for all petitions.
Gillen said that they recommend approval of the variance due to the work that's been done to bring the property into compliance with the Stormwater Program Ordinance and the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance. Current resident Sam Yeary spoke to the board and expressed that they are thankful to the staff that's been working with them to bring the property into compliance.
My family and I are new to Monroe County. We moved here in February, and so this is I've learned a lot about the flood zone here recently. And I am very appreciative of Tammy just helping guide me through this process. And she and I have been emailing back and forth, just trying to make sure for a couple of reasons. One, to ensure that we're compliant, but two, to understand what we've gotten ourselves into, right? The property itself is beautiful. We're really enjoying just being here in Monroe County, and I have 2 boys, and so this is they're living a farm life. We came from a neighborhood up north, and so this has just been a learning curve for us. So without the help of Tammy and kind of everybody, I assumed what from the top down appeared to be a pretty big mess. Fortunately, the folks that were there before, although they didn't follow the process, at least they didn't break all the rules, and I'm able to just do everything I can to make sure we remain compliant. So I just appreciate everyone's time, and thanks, Tammy, for the help. And any question?
The board approved the buildable area variance unanimously. On May 7th, Bloomington City Council members heard the second reading of a proposal to vacate an alley in Bloomington's Trades District. The petitioners included the mill and the city's redevelopment commission. The purpose would be to make room to develop a new 150-bed boutique hotel. The alley is located between West 10th Street and West Maker Way. CEO of the mill and former Bloomington Mayor John Fernandez presented the ordinance.
Let me just first say that we're super excited about this project. The Trades District Hotel is a really exciting development as it relates to the overall vision for the Trades District and what we're trying to do in terms of creating a very vibrant mixed-use campus, if you will, for the innovation community and others. That's part of a shared vision that we all have. Let me also just thank the City Planning Department, the Redevelopment Commission, City Legal, your Economic Sustainable Development team as well for collaborating with us as we've put together this request for the alley vacation. Just in summary, I think the materials that are in the packet are pretty thorough between your staff, City Legal, Planning, and the Mills materials. But at a very top line, we believe this resolution, the petition, complies with the city's policy as it relates to alley vacation. And in particular, this alley vacation is going to enable us to, I think, create a much more effective design, a more efficient use of the land, and it'll enable the hotel development to happen in a way that's going to ensure better street activation on 10th Street as well as Madison Street. It's also interesting that, for this right-of-way, it's a right-of-way allocation or vacation, but it's not really an alley vacation because the alleys never existed. It's platted on the subdivision for this particular part of the Trades District, but it's never been an alley. And In the materials we submitted, there were several photographs, historic photographs of what's been there. So, you know, it's not like we're giving up something that the community has been using and has relied upon, whether for pedestrian or vehicular traffic. Moreover, the alley that's platted, it doesn't connect to a network of other alleys. So we think that, in fact, with working with the planning professionals that you have here at the city and the development team, we can actually come up with a site plan that's going to really facilitate the kind of activation we want between the different uses, the different buildings. That'll actually be quite good and probably better than your traditional kind of alley network. Again, I think this will really enable us to you know, create conditions for a private investment here that's really going to enhance the district. It's going to add a lot of vitality and economic activity for the city of Bloomington.
Council President Hobie Stosberg asked about the process of right-of-way vacations. Fernandez said that it would be spelled out in the site planning process.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm really pleased that onto the design, I mean, it's not so much that we're vacating an alley in some ways, but we're moving an alley so that then like that public right-of-way space then goes in like an L shape around the forge. But that's not actually like platted anywhere right now, right? So like, tell me about the process as
what
it moves forward around kind of reimagining that block.
Yeah, that would, the plan is to, and the commitment is to work with the city planning department as we go forward with an actual site plan approval, that kind of dedication of any new right-of-ways would happen as part of that process because they have to approve it as part of the site plan. So we think there's an opportunity to really, you know, make an enhanced, you know, I guess, you know, connection there for pedestrians, vehicles, you know, so that it functions well as a development site. But that's something that would happen as part of the actual site plan process. So we'll work with the planning department on that.
Okay, so right now this is essentially a verbal commitment to have that L-shaped alley in there.
Yeah.
I just really hope that you like hold that side of the verbal commitment because we can't necessarily
we've made
like,
that commitment.
go back and do anything. But
Yeah,
I
and so is
think
the-
that's just
yeah.
a helpful design in terms of thinking about what our alleys supposed to be for in terms of things like trash pickup and you know,
Absolutely.
being able to go all the way through without having some strange dead end alley there.
I can say this with absolute, you know, commitment is that our interests are aligned. We have to have a functional ingress, egress for vehicles, for pedestrians, et cetera. So it's, there's no misalignment here in terms of what the city's desires are and what the development desire is.
During public comment, Senior Government Community Relations Director Christopher MG of the Bloomington Chamber of Commerce expressed his support for the ordinance. MG outlined his vision for the future hotel and the trades district in general.
I'm supporting this ordinance before you on the alley vacation in the mill, and I've been encouraged by what I've heard tonight. I've been in these meetings where these vacations or swaps have taken a long turn as far as discourse is concerned, and I get the value of this sort of infrastructure for utility purposes, a collection of waste, for transportations, for deliveries, but they have to have an active use and they have to have a functional integration, and I think what Mr. Fernandez showed is that this hasn't been a history of that, and what we need is something that's going to be functional for that specific site, which is the Trades District, that's going to unlock this really cool boutique hotel that's going to go there. We really wanted to see the Trades District to its peak, to its capacity, where it's really a hub for young professionals, entrepreneurs, and things that I think the city lacks. And I think allowing this sort of vacation sort of sets this in motion to move in the right direction.
Councilmember Andy Ruff asked for clarification on the right-of-way and how it relates to the alley. Director of Planning and Transportation David Hiddle responded.
I'd like to ask for a point of clarification based on a comment that's been made. I mean, I know it should have ideally come up earlier, but it's a result of a council member comment. And it's simply that when I looked and thought about this before and made a decision in my mind to be supportive of it, that was before tonight. And so it's been a little while. And I'm confused. I thought that there was going to be some right-of-way granted. There was basically the exact same length of the right-of-way that's going to be vacated. So there's going to be a new segment of alleyway created that's basically the same as the one that is being vacated. Is that accurate?
I see our Director of Planning and Transportation in the audience. I don't know if he wants to talk about that, because that's kind of what I asked about in terms of that L shape, which is pictured, but is not anything except for kind of like a handshake promise that they're going to essentially replat it, and then that portion would then be public alley. But if you want to introduce yourself and maybe take a stab at that.
Thank you, David Hiddle, Director of the Department of Planning and Transportation. That's correct. We are recommending approval, and our approval is conditioned on the provision of an east-west alley that would connect the southern terminus of the vacated alley to the east to Madison Street. Otherwise, you would have a dead-end alley, which is always a bad idea. This keeps it contiguous and functional, and that commitment could take many forms. I think it's already been committed to and would be made a condition of approval here tonight. Perhaps Mr. Fernandez can speak to that. But yeah, the expectation is that they come back, and with the development of the hotel or whatever it is that gets put there, there would be a new alley platted east-west to connect the southern end of the remainder of this north-south alley to Madison.
So this would basically be like at the plan commission stage when that site plan gets approved. That is when that portion would get converted from the private land into the public alleyway?
Yes, it would be essentially the reverse of this process. They would have a survey showing the alley that would be dedicated as new right-of-way, and provide that and make that part of the plat, amend the plat essentially.
The ordinance passed with a vote of 7-1. The Monroe County Stormwater Management Board met on May 7th. Friends of Lake Monroe Watershed Coordinator Maggie Sullivan gave an update on the 2024 septic program.
You may recall last year you funded a project to do a septic maintenance program in Monroe County in the Lake Monroe Watershed. And I submitted a report in the packet kind of summarizing how that went. This was the second time we'd done it in Monroe County. We contacted about 3,000 households who are people who live in the watershed portion of Monroe County and offered to reimburse them 50% of their septic pumping costs as a way to try and remind people they should be doing this every 3 to 5 years. We had about 80 households take advantage of that program again, so very similar to when we did it 2 years prior. We also had a septic education workshop with about a dozen very enthusiastic participants. Cheyenne Cox with the health department did a great job giving an overview of septic systems and answering tons of questions from the audience. So we felt it was a very successful program. Really appreciate your support in making that happen. I actually got a phone call last week from someone who saved their brochure from last year and wondered if we were still doing it. And I said, sadly not this time, but maybe again sometime in the future. There is a similar program running in Brown County right now, and we will be launching a program in Jackson County, doing a very similar thing later this summer.
Board member Tron Enright Randolph asked how often septic tanks should be checked. Sullivan responded.
We usually say 3 to 5 years. It's hard to give a precise answer because it depends partly on how many people are in your household and how much water you're using, but every 3 years is a good rule of thumb.
So I really like this project. And one other thing I think is a notable point is some of these people received this mailer and wasn't really too interested in the voucher and went ahead and proceeded with getting their septic flushed, and that's really cool. So I think just, that gentle reminder is very neat.
Later, during staff reports, Stormwater Program Manager Erica Penna shared that Indiana House Bill 10-37 has passed. Penna said that they're working on updating county ordinances to bring the county into compliance with the bill, and that the bill will go into effect on July 1st. Madeira asked if they were able to understand what compliance would look like, and Penna responded.
Do you think the bill is fairly comprehensible in terms of what must be done to comply? Because when I read it, I did not get, it seemed kind of obtuse.
Yes, I have to reach out to IDEM to see if they have any directive available to us to help us. But my guess is that they are also a little bit at a loss.
Board member Julie Thomas added that the Indiana Department of Environmental Management has been instructed to update their stormwater rules so that the county stormwater ordinance will have to be updated again following those changes.
They've also been instructed to revamp their rules. And so we're going to have to do this again once they revamp, which is what we all saw coming. When this bill passed or when this bill was introduced, we all saw that coming, that they were going to go ahead and change the stormwater rules, and now we're all going to have to live with whatever garbage they give us. Sorry. It's just the way it is.
And Wright Randolph commented that more population-dense areas will be the most affected.
It's going to wreak havoc on kind of our more dense areas like the city and the town, because they have a lot of smaller sites that won't need a permit.
Madeira also said that the new legislation would have harmful effects on Indiana residents.
I echo my colleagues' concerns. This is not a good thing. And we saw it with wetlands, where they imposed the classification system, and then they used the classification system to essentially gut wetlands protections last year. So not good for the future.
The Monroe County Stormwater Management Board will meet again on June 4th. At the Bloomington Board of Public Works meeting on May 6, Director of Public Works Adam Wason asked the board to approve a service agreement with Wise Building Solutions to repair 27 ADA ramps.
Adam Wason on behalf of Joe Van Devender at the Street Division of Public Works. This is a service agreement with Wise Building Solutions to repair or construct 27 accessible curb ramps and sidewalk sections. And this is primarily down in the Pine Meadows, Pinehurst Drive, Sunny Slopes area, as well as Berks and Kennedy. So more towards the southeast and southern portions of the city. We solicited quotes or bids on this through an RFQ, and Wise was the low bid at $85,300. Groomer Construction, Milestone Contractors, and Weddle all bid as well, but Wise was the low bid at $85,300, and we'd ask for your approval.
The board voted to approve the agreement unanimously. During staff reports, Wason gave an update on how the Public Works Department handled the Indiana University Little 500 festivities.
Just wanted to give a couple updates and reports of some recent activities. So we had a very eventful Little 500 in Bloomington a couple weekends ago. I just want to really commend our public works staff and others in the public safety divisions. We had thousands of visitors in the community, large presence down on Kirkwood. We took some pictures of the before and after, but I got down there, I think it was by 7:45, 8 a.m. on Sunday morning after being out late with managing some of our properties. But the overall sentiment of everyone walking down Kirkwood, when you would show them the picture of what it looked like 5 hours before and what it looked like after our crews had been there for a couple hours, was just simply amazing. Big shout out to Zach Souders in our facilities division, our downtown specialist, and the Brighton Bloomington crews with Centerstone. And then also we had extra staff from our sanitation division come in, and I simply couldn't believe my eyes when I got down there by 7:45 a.m. Sunday. It looked like church was ready to be. I mean, it was just it was spectacular how the effort they put into it. I was expecting I would be down there for most of the day with the crews, and we'd be cleaning up until about 5 p.m., and they had it all just spick and span very quickly. So big shout out to them.
Lastly, Wason thanked all of the volunteers that helped clean up the city in preparation for the upcoming commencement ceremony taking place at Indiana University.
Another big thank you out to all of the volunteers that participated in yesterday's downtown cleanup. About 90 volunteers met at the Buskirk Waldron, which one? Hill Park, I couldn't think of the third, formerly known as 3rd Street Park behind the police station. But we had volunteers meet there for the coffee in the morning and registration, and then we dispersed throughout the downtown. Came back for some lunch. Big shout out to Fourth Phase Consulting and Lenny's and some other sponsors that really stepped up and made the event great. Soma provided the coffee in the morning as well, so thank you to them and all of the volunteers. We're ready to host for as what President Whitten referred to today as the Super Bowl of campus, every year's commencement ceremony. So we are excited for that, and all the guests and visitors that will be in town celebrating their graduates this weekend. So that's all I have. Thank you.
The Bloomington Board of Public Works will meet again on May 20th. And that is all for CATS Week. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.